Helen, as we know, she goes off with Paris, ends up with Paris being Helen. Blah, 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 blah. Start again. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten and we are doing my February wrap up, which is the Smash or Pass edition. I really enjoy doing this. It's just a fun way to let you know what I think about the books, especially because I don't tend to do star ratings. You know what Smash or Pass is. Let's just get straight into this. Although I do have one special recommendation, no, special mention, and that is For Your Own Good. Technically I am reading this at the very end of February, but I'm filming this wrap up a couple of days just before the end, just because that's when I've got the filming time, and I am loving this book. I don't have long left to go at all, but so far this stands as an immediate smash, but we'll get the final thoughts and everything, but that's going to be in my March wrap up. But this book is fantastic. It's a dark academia and I have been enjoying my time with it, tabbing. I have quite an extensive tabbing system going on at the minute, which I'm loving. It's a really good book. So far that stands as a smash, but as I said, you'll get final thoughts in the vlog that's dealing with this book, which I think is going to be the weekly vlog after this video, and also in my March wrap up. As it stands from my February TBR, I have one book that I didn't finish on the TBR. Let me go grab that actually. And that's Solo Dance by Lee Katomi. I didn't mean to not read this one. Again, I think it's been on a couple of TBRs, or it's been as an option for a couple of TBRs. Yeah, I didn't get around to finishing this book unfortunately, but it is one I'm very much interested in. This is a contemporary looking at what it's like to be a queer person working in Tokyo and the things that she's got to deal with. I really want to get to this soon. I just, once again, haven't. So now with that out of the way, let's get straight into this. So I normally start off with my ebooks that I've read for the month and I keep them on a little piece of paper. The first one is Athena's Child by Hannah M. Lynn. I liked this book, but I'm going to say pass overall. This was a Medusa retelling and I liked it, but I very much liked the first half of the book on its own. That was really good, and I think if we had continued on with Medusa's perspective to the end of the book, that would have been fantastic. As it was, it felt very much like cut and stop with her story, and then we're going to start someone else's story, and while it does link to the tale of Medusa, it just didn't feel very natural. And so for that reason, I'm going to say pass. We then had Court of Ravens and Ruin by Eliza Rain. This I read for the Romantasy readathon. I found out about it through Jan. I will have her channel linked below, and I was on Team Monster Lovers. I didn't do amazingly well for the readathon, I'm not gonna lie, but this was the group book to read and I liked it, but I think at the minute I'm gonna say pass. It's not a series that I'm interested in continuing on with at the minute. I think if I was in the mood for that sort of angsty romance along the veins of like Sarah J Maas or From Blood and Ash, that sort of thing, then this would have been a good one. It's got a slightly different take on it, which I did appreciate. It's got Norse mythology inspired, so you get a lot of mentions of Odin and other like Thor and things like that, so I think that's really good, and I like the magic system. That's very unique. We're in a world where there is fae and we have humans, but humans are treated really abysmally in this world. Fae are kind of like ruling over them and treating them as if they're just slaves or lesser beings. However, there is magic involved and some humans are ruin touched, and this means that they can manipulate what their ruin links to. Our main character, she is gold rune touched, and so when she's living in the gold court, she is absolutely revered and she's kept as one of the better treated humans, but it's still terrible until of course the shadow court comes along and takes her away. You learn about the different courts, the different magics, and I do think that side of things was very different and I liked that. There's also like this zombie-esque thing that's going on as well. I think just overall I wasn't in the mood for that angsty romance, and at the minute I still have no inclination to carry on with the series, so pass once again. We're not off to a great start, are we? Then I read How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories, and that's by Holly Black, and this was just great. I loved this. I really want to get a physical copy actually, because the illustrations in it, although you did see them in the ebook, it's going to be so much better when you have it as an actual book in front of you. I think it's just going to be amazing. So I really want to get that book. I'm hoping to get it soon. And this is about Carden from this Folk of the Air series, and you see things from his perspective. It is short little stories, and you get it just snippets of what's happened throughout the series, but from his perspective. But you do have an overarching story that kind of connects up to each other, and by the end of the book, that's what it's focusing on. And I really liked it. That overarching story made me feel like I was reading a Grimm's fairy tale. I really enjoyed it, and I've mentioned quite a lot lately in various different videos that I'm very much in my fairy tale era. I really want to read loads of books that give me that fairy tale vibe, that link to fairy tales. I want to read the originals behind the fairy tales and see where the influences are. That's the focus going to be. Last year it was a lot more like mythology. This year it's going to be more fairy tales. We're just wrapping up the mythology bits this year, and hopefully that'll be done in May, and I'll have that video ready for you. And yeah, this year is going to be focused on fairy tales, and that's why I really enjoyed this particular book, because I can say, you know what, it's not the best book I've ever read, but I really did enjoy it for that Grimm's fairy tale vibe. So this is a smash. The first smash. Well, unless of course like For Your Own Good stays as a smash. But anyway, now let's get into the physical books, and as usual I just have these as a pile on my bed with no discerning order to it. So first up we have A Diary of Blood by S.T. Gibson, and this is a book that I read for the Romantasy readathon, and I loved this one. I actually chose this book specifically because it is Jan's favourite book. There's one thing I've come to know from watching Jan's channel is how much she loves this book, and she loves vampire inspired stories just in general. I also do. Dracula retellings are one of my absolute favourites to read. It's my first original love of retellings. And so this I really did enjoy. I did tab it. I really enjoyed it. Again, we have a bit of a comprehensive tabbing system. I went for 3 tabs in this book. The light blue is for moments linked to depression. The purple is for quotes I love / powerful quotes. And then the dark blue is the manipulation by Dracula. So in this one we are following Carmilla, and she is one of Dracula's brides. She is not the first Dracula bride, and it is noted that she is not the first, but she is one of them, and she's been with Dracula for a very long time. But she has been so manipulated that she has lost herself along the way. It is beautiful and sad and poetic, and the writing is just gorgeous. I really enjoyed this story, so that's an immediate smash. I think it was absolutely stunning, and I really am pleased that I picked this one for the readathon, because otherwise it would take me so much longer to get to this book, and it would have been a shame, because this is fantastic. Highly recommend if you like Dracula inspired stories, or if you like a book that focuses on the toxicity of love and how easily it is to be manipulated, although there are loads of trigger warnings. One thing that I actually really liked about this book is that it actually has a list of trigger warnings at the start of the book, which isn't something I've seen too often. But it's definitely needed, and I think it was done really, really well. But yeah, fantastic book. Loved this one. Then we have The Tropic of Serpents by Marie Brennan. This is the second book in the Lady Trent series. I read this one in my 24-hour readathon, and this is a smash. I really enjoyed this one. It is slower than the first book, so this book I refer to it always as Jane Austen mixed with dragons, but on a scientific level, not in a fantastical way. We are seeing these dragons as if they are real living animals that they are trying to study for science to understand them. So it's that side of things, not the fantastical elements of it. Each book focuses on a different area and a different species of dragon, and in this one we have a lot more focus on politics that were going alongside it that Lady Trent got caught up in. It is a memoir, so it's her looking back on her life, and I really like that narration style. There is also illustrations in here. It's, what can I say, it's one of my favourite series that I discovered last year. I love this series so much, and yes, I've only read the second book. I don't care. I think it's fantastic. Really enjoyed my time with this. Smash. Then we have Daughters of Sparta by Claire Hayward, and this is a retelling of Clytemnestra and Helen of Troy. So Clytemnestra and Helen were sisters, and they were married off to two brothers, Menelaus and Agamemnon, and they both have really tragic things. Helen is the most known in terms of what happened with the whole Battle of Troy system, but Clytemnestra I think is becoming more known because of the amount of retellings that's being done about her, which I really like. I'm going to say smash. I really liked this book. I love the way the two girls were depicted. We follow them from childhood to adulthood. You see them, how they grow apart and also grow into themselves, the different things that they have to overcome. It is so beautifully done. One of my favourite Clytemnestra and Helen retellings, and I have read quite a few. But yeah, I'm really pleased. I cannot wait to read more of Claire Hayward's works, because I think it was absolutely fantastic, really well written, and yeah, just absolutely adored this one. So another smash. That was a really quick cover up, but I suppose for me, I've read so many of these retellings, I know what the story is about. But a very quick recap, as I mentioned, Helen is of Helen of Troy, so she is one that started off as Sparta, and then Paris came along and convinced her to go to Troy. Depending on the type of retelling would depend on how that convincement took place, but she ends up over there, and then all of Greece goes off into this massive war against Troy to get Helen back, and it lasts 10 years. But then Clytemnestra's story is that she gets married off to Agamemnon, who is Helen's husband's brother, and she has a really sad story because Agamemnon does something absolutely atrocious to get a good wind for them all to sail to Troy to start this war that lasts 10 years. And when Agamemnon comes back, he gets his reckoning from Clytemnestra, and I think it was a really powerful story. It's done really well, and I've seen loads of different retellings of these two women with how they can be portrayed in different ways. Some of them treat Clytemnestra as this really angry, revengeful woman and really horrible. In this story, it was a lot more understanding of a mother's love and her just trying to be a good person all the time within the confines of society, and how it's just atrocious what's happened. And I really enjoyed all of that. And then you have Helen, and some versions of Helen are her being really shallow and spiteful and doesn't care about the effects of things that are happening, whereas in this one it was more of a focus on somebody that was so young, because I think that's what a lot of people forget, is how young these girls were in this story, and how she was easily manipulated by Paris because all she wanted was to be loved, and she was in a loveless marriage, and you know, she's young, it's understandable. She didn't expect what to happen, so you can call her very naive in that respect, but she then comes to hate being there, and I just think it was beautifully done. I really enjoyed both of these women's perspectives, and the way Claire Hayward approached it, fantastic. Okay, then we have another book I'm in the middle of. I'm not sure if it's a smash or a pass, and that's Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. Now the reason why I say that is, when I was first reading this book, I liked it. I liked the first half of the book more than the end. This one we're focusing on two teachers. They are a married couple, and the husband is in trouble for sleeping with students. This was before it wasn't allowed, and his wife stands firm on the fact that theirs was a very open marriage, that he was allowed to have extramarital affairs and it didn't bother her, that she knew it was with some students, and at the end of the day it was their choice. They weren't coerced into it. Her husband's not that type of person. So it really does look at quite a controversial topic as to being in that sort of position of power. Can you really say that you didn't abuse that to then sleep with your students? Like, the position that you're in, it's a power play, and his wife is very firm on the fact of, well, no, those girls still had a choice. And I think it was an interesting, albeit risky, perspective to take, and one that I found interesting to read because it forced me to question things. The only thing is I wouldn't reread this book, and I wouldn't. I liked the ending of it in a way, with the way it became quite a obsessive love that then the wife was having, but with another teacher. But again, he was younger than her, and she became quite obsessed with him. and you're seeing that obsession grow, and it's a mixture of obsession with him, stress over what's happening with the whole situation with her husband, the way it's affecting her work. So there's a lot of mixture of different feelings and stuff, and I think it was well done. And like I say, I do think it makes you question a lot of things, but I wouldn't reread it. So I think I'm going to go with a pass. But it's a very tentative pass because I did like it when I read it. I don't know, we always get a couple of those in a month where I'm not sure where I would place this. Then we have Blue Exorcist by Kazukato. Sorry for pronunciation that wrong. This is a manga, volume 1. I read this in the 24-hour readathon and I liked it. It's fun. I wouldn't continue on with the series though. This is just a light-hearted, fun manga. Really, I like having these to break up, especially during the 24-hour readathon. The format that I'm reading makes it a lot easier for me. And this one I liked. In this one we're following the son of the devil, but he's been raised by exorcists, so it makes a very interesting situation, really. He doesn't realise he's the son of the devil until later on, but he still wants to become an exorcist and get his real father back for something that happens to the person that took him in and has raised him. I liked it. It's okay. I wouldn't continue on, so I'm going to say for me it's a pass, but I can definitely see somebody else really enjoying this one for a nice light-hearted fun time. Also in that 24-hour readathon I read the Penelope ad by Margaret Atwood, and this is a pass. It's a shame. I really wanted to like this. This is another Greek myth retelling. It was definitely the month of Greek myth retellings. And this one I had high hopes for, because we're following Penelope, who is the wife of Odysseus, who went with the whole Battle of Troy. He went to the battle, though he didn't want to go, and then on the journey back he then took an extra 10 years just to get home. And Penelope in this time period has always been seen as this woman who's very chaste and had to fend off suitors for the amount of years that her husband was away, and the fact that she did it in such a cunning, smart way. And that's what we're exploring. Penelope is dead. She is telling this story from the underworld. It's interesting. I like it. The things that I don't like about it is you get random poems and songs in here, and I like the perspective of these poems and songs because it's from the 10 maidens who were killed by Odysseus, and I liked that perspective, but I wish we had picked a perspective rather than having the two. And also there was this trial that took place that didn't fit with the rest of the vibe, and I just feel like it was too much being done. I think the handmaids, seeing it from their perspective, I really liked that. I thought that was a really inspired idea, and I do wish we had a focus on that within retellings. I think that would be a really interesting perspective to explore. However, I just didn't like the execution of it in this book. It just didn't work for me, and I found Penelope as a character a little bit flat in this book as well. I feel bad saying that because, you know, she's a girl that's been taken away to this other country. She can't connect with anybody there, and I do feel bad for her, but at the same time there was no connection. So yeah, this was just a pass. The last few, we have Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Brain. This is one of my favourite books of the month. I love this one. Immediate smash. This is the third book in the Diviners series, and I love this series so much. We're set in 1920s New York, and it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. This series is a series of occult happenings. So the first book we have a series of murders that happen in, and it's occult based. The second book we get a series of really strange deaths that are occurring, and again it's got occult links and to do with ghosts and it's paranormal stuff. And then the third book, and you realise that everything's been building from those first two books for this one. We're following a group of different characters known as diviners. They have different gifts, some of them for reading an object and seeing the memories that are attached, some fire, we've got visions of the future, we've got healing, we've got all sorts of different things going on. But what I love about these books is not only do you have that fantasy setting, but you also have real things that happened in America at this time that gets explored, and I think that's fantastic. So in the first book you get a lot of focus on what it's like to be black or to be gay in America at this time, and how horribly they were treated, the segregation that was going on, and the way people were persecuted for being black or gay. Is really well done. I really liked it, and as much as our characters do not agree with what is going on it is also true to the time, and their hands are tied because of this. I just think it was fantastic. Then the second book, you get more of a focus on, as well as none of that goes away, it's in the background, but you get more of a focus this time on the Chinese segregation. Being Chinese American, there was I'm not sure if it was a law or a policy that came into place of how they were treating them, and again, that was horrendous. That was really, really bad, and you got to see that and the effects of it. And it's all these things that don't really get talked about, that get brushed underneath a carpet, and Libra brought them to the forefront and was like, look at our history, look at how terrible it is. And this book in particular does a lot of focus on that. We have a lot of ghosts, they're rising up and they're going, look at us, look at what you did, hear us, hear our story. And I think Libra does an amazing job of bringing that all to light. I think it was so well done. So yeah, I loved this one, smash. Unfortunately, The King of Crows is a pass, and this is the 4th book and in the series, and it's the final book, and it's such a shame. The first 100 pages I really liked, the ending was okay, the bit in the middle was 300 pages too long. And that's a shame, because our characters end up getting separated and they're going to reconvene at this particular place. And so you're seeing them getting to this place, but it's so drawn out. It's 300 pages long of that, and it's so repetitive, and it's just such a shame. Some parts of it I think were good, like there's an actual flood, and that happened in history, and the way people were treated during this flood. Again, a lot of it, you can tell it's been well researched, well dredged up in our history, and I like that. It's just unfortunate that it was so drawn out and it didn't have the same impact. I think it was worse because this book was so well done. It came to such a crescendo. There were so many stakes and the tension was really high, and then it all fell off with this book, and it meant that the ending of this book could have been so much more impactful than what it was, and it just didn't hit it for me. So that's a pass, which is a real big shame. Last two, we have The Mystery of the Yellow Room by Gaston Leroux, and this is the book that inspired Agatha Christie. I'm going to say smash. I liked it. It's more of a tentative smash. We're going to give a peck on the cheek, but I did like it. The only thing that I can say was a bit eye roll in places is how dramatic it was at the end with the reveals and everything, but at the same time our investigator is actually an 18-year-old reporter, so I can kind of forgive it for those dramatic things, because, you know, 18 years old, of course you're going to want the attention and the spotlight. I did like this book though. It kind of reminded me a bit of Sherlock Holmes as well, in the way the setup is, where you have our detective, although he's actually a reporter in this case, and then the person that is telling the story, so a Dr. Watson if you will, and I did like it. I liked the mystery of it all. I think it was really well done, and I enjoy it. I enjoy a classic mystery. I just find them so cozy and comforting to read. I know what to expect, and this one met expectations, and so for that it gets a nice little peck on the cheek pass. And the final one is The Beautiful Cassandra by Jane Austen, and again I read this in the 24-hour readathon, and this one I liked. Is one of those ones which is hard for me to properly say smash or pass on this one, because there are spelling mistakes. This is a tiny little book filled with a few different short stories that Jane Austen wrote when she was a young child for her family's entertainment. However, what I really enjoyed about this was seeing the sparks of where some of our future characters were to go from. So I've already read her novels, and seeing this, I could see little breadcrumbs of our different main characters and how they were going to grow and blossom into the women that Jane Austen wrote, and I enjoyed it for that. So for that, it's going to get a smash. I liked it. I think if you don't love Jane Austen, then you may not get on with this. But because I really do love Jane Austen, I loved her books, I've got a few non-fiction books I want to read about her, so reading stories that she wrote from her childhood, I just enjoyed for that. So yeah, smash. I think overall this month, it's been a pretty good reading month. I feel like it's definitely a bit more equal with the smashes and passes. That happens. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know, what was your favourite book of the month that you've read, or what was your least favourite? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you've read any of these, whether you agree with me and whether you would smash or pass them, all the usual things. But I've been speaking for almost 30 minutes, so I'm going to leave you in peace. So if you've made it this far, then let's leave a... what do we do? You know what? Birds were a big theme this month in lots of different ways, so leave a bird emoji. I feel like I use that emoji a lot, but choose a bird. But yeah, okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna go. So thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please do give it that thumbs up, subscribe and comment to let me know that you're here. Those 3 things are so important to helping this channel grow. My social media links will be linked below, and I will of course catch you in the next video.